Matt, nice to meet you. I'm very humbled to be allowed to speak to you. I'm a German animation enthusiast disguised as a journalist.
Well, it's nice to meet you as well. I am also humbled to be able to speak with you. It's great. So thank you.
Well, what's the weather like? No,
it's cold and rainy here.
Oh, we had so much rain in the last week. It's well, anyway, no, we have to go to a land where it really rarely, seldom, it seems not to rain in the land of luck very much.
Yes.
And yeah, I was surprised because I thought I would see a new adventure after luck. But in the end, I have to say, how would you say? It's a mid-quel film. How would you call that adventure story? In terms of it's in the middle of luck.
Yes, exactly. I think you could think of it as an offshoot of the main storyline, but we still wanted it to stand on its own, to be its own story within that land. So we spent time in the film, following Sam and her adventure through the land of luck, and we saw this really fun opportunity to follow these side characters, the hazmat bunnies, and see them and their duties in this world of luck that we didn't really see much of. We saw glimpses of them here and there, but we didn't get to really spend much time with them, and we all kind of loved them. We all thought they were really fun, and so the kickoff idea was really centered around this, like, what if during the film we just follow those bunnies? So they go and get the speck off the same shoe, and then they run off to take care of that speck. And so the idea was just like, let's follow them, let's see what happens, because this bad luck speck is not supposed to be there. It's a speck of bad luck in the world of good luck. So how what's going to happen? Getting rid of this bad luck may be more difficult than we think. And so whether or not the story happened inside of the story of the film or outside of the story of the film, later or before, we still wanted to take the opportunity to follow these bunnies, and we wanted to kind of to showcase them and their job, because we just wanted to explore more of this land, and we thought these bunnies had a really fun take into the land.
What's the origin of the name of the bunnies? The hazmat bunnies.
Hazmat bunnies. So hazmat, a hazmat team is a team that cleans up toxic waste and toxic material, and they always have these suits on them to protect them from the toxic material. And so that's just kind of, we just put together hazmat bunnies, and that's it.
No, it's a funny idea, because the most interesting thing for a child, if it sees a bunny, it's a fur. And the only thing we do not see with that bunnies are the fur.
Right.
Which in terms of animation is, of course, a good thing, because furs, I think, very difficult to animate.
Yeah, it is. But the fun thing too about putting them in these suits and having them go through the adventure in these suits was we could amp up the kind of cartoony pain that they could go through, because they have these inflatable suits that protect them from impacts and things like that. So that was the real fun aspect of it. I think if they didn't have those suits, when they're going through this when they're getting hit by cars or landing from high distances and stuff, it would feel much more visceral, and we didn't want that. We don't want it to feel like it's a painful, scary thing, but that it's a comedic and funny thing to follow these bunnies and to see what they go through, because that's what the suits are there for, to protect them. And so we could really kind of enjoy the old school animation impacts and things like that.
It transported me right back into my childhood, when I discovered the great short films from the 40s, 50s. I went back in my mind and I remembered how I went to see Tom and Jerry for the first time, and Tex Avery and all that stuff. And I was trained then in this escalation of, yeah, don't let's I wouldn't call it escalation of violence, but let's say it's an escalation of bad luck.
Yes.
So I immediately saw the turning to this kind of animation world, especially when the big hammer is coming out of the car. And at the same time, I thought, well, that was 70 years ago. That's quite a while.
Yes, yeah.
Haven't we changed somehow as humans? Or do we still have such a delight in seeing something like that happen?
I think the thing that that transcends kind of the time, you know, that will never change is to see something unexpected. I think that's really what draws us to watch something and to rewatch something is that we're seeing something that we haven't seen before. And so even though we are, you know, revisiting this world that we saw in the feature film, telling this kind of story with these kind of gags and these kind of jokes was those were things that were unexpected, you know, and the jokes are unexpected. To see that hammer come out, pop open, you know, that's why cartoons and the comedy from cartoons can be kind of timeless, and is because the anticipation and the unexpectedness of them is what draws our attention, and we can have fun with it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn. I was raised by parents that were familiar still with Felix the Cat, and even if they have been teachers and they were very critical about cartoons and animation, they loved animation and they loved cartoons in the end, and they shared my passion. But on the other hand, I'm now surrounded by nephews and nieces, much younger than me. And I'm not quite sure. I had discovered being in a situation with my little nephew, 9 years old, about cartoon violence, because he was a little bit critical. He was more critical than me about cartoon violence, and he wanted to be assured that nothing is happening to the cartoon character. And that was very funny. After that, he was very okay with it. I was amazed because I wasn't. I agree that we do not lose that kind of fun with that, and the surprises coming with that. But on the other hand, I was quite amazed because he had some objections that I never developed as a child towards this kind of animation. And I thought maybe something has changed, but I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
I think children are different today than, you know, or they're not different. I mean, children are always children. I have 3 children of my own, and but what they're exposed to in terms of storytelling and how stories are told and jokes and things like that are very different than when we were growing up. And also the way that we parent is very different. And so, as a parent, some parents are, you know, they shy away from anything that is violent, even cartoony violence. And so it's this balance of trying to make sure that you are doing something that is still appropriate and fun and engaging for kids, but also that parents can enjoy, not just approve, but enjoy, you know, because I want the parents to be able to watch something and get as much or more out of it than their kids are, because there might be things that the adults find humorous that the kids just go right over their heads, you know. So you know, I think it's a different environment than it was back then. You know, nowadays you know, a kid can watch an entire season of a show in a weekend, whereas when we were growing up, we were watching one episode at a time, and then, you know, months and months in between any episode. And so, so kids are just consuming story now in a way that we never were able to do before. So yeah, I think they understand story differently and than we did at that age, but they still want to see the same things, and they still want to, which is they want to connect with characters, they want to laugh, they want to enjoy what they're watching. Those things haven't changed, and so those are things to continue to try to hit. And that's something I've learned throughout my career working on reboots of things that have that entertained us 30 years ago, and finding a way to entertain children today. So
Yeah, I was amazed. I thought about it, and I thought the biggest change, in my opinion, is also to be able to have an instant replay, that you can see it again almost immediately. When I went to a cinema when I was a child, I had to convince my parents after a week or two maybe to see the film again, or I had to wait 2 years to see it on television, and then I had to wait again and again. Now I would go and see it over and over and over again in an hour.
yeah,
And that changes so much, I think. It doesn't make it so special anymore. It's an interesting thought. I have to think about it. Yeah. On the other hand, Skydance Animation, it's not Warner Brothers, it's not MGM, it's not Disney, it's not DreamWorks. It's trying to find its own voice, I think, its own tone.
yes.
What is your approach? What do you see on that way for Skydance?
Well, honestly, that's the thing that really attracted me to working at Skydance, was this idea that it is carving its own path right now. That finding its voice is its main purpose, and that's exciting. It's like instead of working at something established with a lot of established rules and ways of doing things. It's almost kind of akin to working at a startup of some sort, where you have a vision, you have an idea of what you want to do, and then you just have to do it. And in the act of doing it, you're finding your voice. You're finding what you want to do, more than being told what to do. It's a ground up kind of level of approach to storytelling, where the idea comes first, and it rises, and it gets built upon. Whereas a lot of times you have more of a top-down type of hierarchy, where you're told this is how we need the story to be. So it's really nice to be at a place that's like, we are finding our way, and it's great. That's the point. And we have certain vision that we're trying to reach. But honestly, the biggest vision and the biggest kind of true north is tell the best stories that we can. That's the first and foremost. We want to tell the best stories that we can tell, and then from there, let's see.
Well, I was when I had the opportunity to go to London in, I think, around 1999, and went to Richard Williams' masterclass, and he told us we should all go back. We should go backwards to the 1940s, because in his vision, the 1940s has been the best animation ever. And I thought, in seeing your film, I thought, hey, that's going backwards, backwards into the 50s somehow, from the feeling, which I like very much, because I think I'm much more attracted to the 50s and to the 40s, because they are still very conventional. Still, somebody has to make a decision in the end of the day to move forward with the animation, and that's your job as a director. How heavy is it to find that path? Because you had to honor the film. You had the feature film, and you have the rules coming from the feature films in terms of world building and all this stuff. And at the same point, you wanted to make your own mark.
Yeah. But having the film as a jumping off point is helpful, like, because they've done so much of the heavy lifting within the film itself. And it was, I think, following these hazmat bunnies was a real opportunity to tell a different kind of story, because the feature film has a very specific story that it's trying to tell. But with the hazmat bunnies and our ability to go more cartoony with them because of those suits and things like that, and it was a really great opportunity to tweak the storytelling a little bit. We weren't going to reinvent our approach for the short, because we didn't want to create something that didn't fit within the Land of Luck. We wanted to make sure it still fit, but it still had its own voice. And because a short is far different than a feature film. A short is more about one idea and a series of gags around that idea, whereas a feature film is telling a very specific story with an arc, much more of a character study and things like that. And so seeing being able to do the short allowed us to tell a different kind of story and to push things in a different way. But it's still, we were still always looking at the film saying, all right, well, what can we do that fits within the confines of the film? We don't want to go far off and reinvent the style of this thing.
The most famous period, in my opinion, for short films is in the 1930s, when Disney is doing the Silly Symphonies and the short films, preparing everything in a studio for Snow White. Mm-hmm. So for me, short films also always have some kind of training ground atmosphere, because you want to find out something that you want to use somehow later, maybe in a feature film. Is that something that drove your ambitions here?
Absolutely. Like, I've done TV for most of my career, television, TV shows, and coming into Skydance was this new opportunity that I'd never had before. One is I'd done a little bit of CG before, but this was my first opportunity to work fully in CG. And to come into a new studio, this was a great opportunity for me to learn its pipeline, to learn how things worked, to learn how decisions are made, how to make those decisions, how to make decisions based on the pipeline, things like that. So it really was a training ground for me to learn kind of the ins and outs of Skydance, and to work with people who had been there and been creating things, and be able to come in and have guidance from them, but also be able to tell a story that was very much that story led, and so that was a fun opportunity to showcase my kind of sensibilities, but also work within Skydance and figure out how they work as well.
So your ambition is at some point to make a little bit longer film?
I would say, yeah, I would love to do that. That's the goal. What I'm working on right now, TBD, but ultimately at Skydance, that's something that I'd really love to do, because it's a wonderful studio. The people are amazing, and it really is this terrific opportunity to create something that people haven't seen before.
Just a quick question aside. When I had a look at the credits, there was Chris Williams amongst the animators. Is this just one Chris Williams, or is it the Chris Williams, the director? Okay, from your expression,
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, anyway, just an interesting thing for me. It's a very intriguing thing that you are working in a studio that has so many time zones in it, because you have the LA, you have the New York time zone, and then you have the Spanish time zone. Yeah. As a director, you must at some point be awake for 24 hours.
If I'm awake for 24 hours, it's because it's only because I'm doing too much work. But when we work with Madrid, we have very specific overlap times that we have to make work. That's the main thing. There are times I can be a night owl, so there might be times that an email comes from Madrid and I'm still awake, and so I can answer that. But generally, we have these overlap times, and I'm not a stranger to working with overseas studios. I've done it my whole career, working with the Japanese, the Koreans, the Philippines, like all of these like amazing animators and amazing studios, and they are in totally different time zones. So it's always this just kind of finding that overlap, finding time to make it work between the two studios, or between the two locations, and just kind of running with it. It meant early morning sometimes, but that's fine. That's part of the job. Wake up a little bit early and hop on a call with Madrid. But it's great. And the thing that I love about it is that I'm talking to artists around the world, and that's what I love. Like, I love working with these amazing artists, and to have a connection with them is much more important to me than kind of anything. I love having, like, relationships are really important to me when it comes to working in animation. It's a small business, and you want to have good relationships with the people, because you're probably going to be working with them your entire career. And so being able to sit with Madrid and they're part of the team, as opposed to a different studio that is doing some work. They are part of the team, and I love that. And so as much time as we can find to overlap, the better.
I saw you came into animation through CalArts.
Yes.
What brought you to CalArts?
Well, so I grew up in Southern California, and I was always into art. I always wanted to be an artist of some sort, and I also love storytelling. And so those two things kind of converged in animation, and I realized pretty early in my life that I wanted to do animation. That was this this thing that just seemed like it fit exactly me. Like, that's where I should be. And and back in those days, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't ways of learning how to do animation. It really was like you got to find any source that you can get, and just devour that source. So any books about animation, any shows, TV shows, or like documentaries, anything you could consume. And at that time, I found out that CalArts was a school that trained classical animators, and that's where the Disney animators came from, things like that. And I found out that it was only an hour away from my house. And so
Lucky
I was
you.
just, yeah. So I said, well, I've got to go check this place out. So a friend of mine and I, during high school, we drove up to CalArts, and during a portfolio day kind of thing. And I knew it. I was like, this is where I need to be. This is where I need to go. And so, I worked for the next few years working on portfolio, things like that. And then that was it.
I was told a quick last question.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Animation is now constantly changing, more than when I went into it as a journalist. Now with ChatGPT and all this AI stuff coming in, surviving Corona, going remote, whatever, and something is happening all the time. What is your approach to animation? Del Toro said animation is a medium, animation is film. What is it for you?
I think for me, it's to create anything. But beyond that, like, I'm excited about the opportunities of technology. I love working in CG, things like that. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunities in technology to be able to tell stories, but for me, the core is always going to have to be human led artistry. You know, I think that telling a story needs to come from us and our hearts in order to connect with other people. All kinds of art needs to be able to connect with people, and if it's not art that connects, then it kind of, what's the point? Like, you know, so, you know, AI, there's a lot of interesting things happening in AI, but for me, the core of it is always going to have to come from humans who have been driven to create for their entire lives, and who want to create something and who have something very specific to say. And so I think it's a wonder. I think technology is a wonderful opportunity to be able to do that, but we should never forego our own experience and our own desire to create, to like find a shortcut that doesn't give us the best version of that. I think that's the thing. I always want to find the best version of it, and if something doesn't create the best version, then we got to work harder. So yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. That was a lovely talk. Thank you so much.
It was. Thank you.
And I really liked the film.
Thank
hopefully
you.
next time go more violent, so my nephew will be upset.
I'll note that. I'll see what we can do.
Okay. Have a great whatever time is it?
It's morning. Yeah.
Morning. Yeah. Well, it's getting dark here in Germany.
Yeah.
So, well, see you next time.
Next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.